welcome to a cold and gloomy winter day in Southwest Florida. I know it's all relative, but it's in the high 40s, low 50s here today. Unusually cold for this part of the country. I can actually see the steam from my breath, which is unusual in this part of the world. Today, we are doing a wonderful smoked pork butt. We're rolling smoke low and slow. This is going to be a long cook, but amazing flavor. We actually started this cook before the sun came up today, so I did go ahead and film inside as I prepared the pork butt and seasoned it up with our rub. We've got about a 7.5 to 8 pound pork butt here. Taking it out of the wrapper, and I'm not using any binder. It's a little bit moist from being in its packaging, so I'm not going to do any kind of a mustard binder. I'm actually going to use two kinds of rub today. I'm using a little bit of this Whole Lotta Bull diamond dust, specifically for pork ribs. I only have a little bit of it left, so I'm going to do a layer of that all over the whole thing for good flavor. And then I'm going to top it off with our barbecue Pit Boys rub. This stuff is really good. It's got wonderful color. It has sugar and spices in it. It's perfect for doing a pork butt. Now you notice the way I actually season this is I'm seasoning around all the sides of it before I do the bottom and the top. And I'm doing that both with my rub seasoning, and I'm also doing that with my barbecue Pit Boys reddish colored seasoning. And the reason I want to do this, it gives us this beautiful flavor, a little bit of a bark from that sugar and seasoning mixture as it smokes. Additionally, it also will give it this wonderful, wonderful bark that we want to have on the outside of it. Really, really like this flavor, and I like the color. It looks really good when it's actually smoking. Let me talk about the importance of why you actually let your meat rest after you put your rub on it. I'm going to do about a 15 to 20 minute time lapse here in less than a minute, and what you're going to see is what happens as the meat begins to rest. So we've taken this meat that had some moisture in it. I didn't use a binder, but you could use a binder. I didn't in this case. We covered it with our seasoning. You can definitely see there's a powder on it, right? You can see a dry seasoning all the way around it. And as this sits, what happens is it sweats out. The salt sweats out the moisture from the meat. That begins to take the dry, dusty rub and turn it more into a paste. That paste is what builds your bark when you're actually doing barbecue. And just take a look at this. As this time lapse moves forward, you can see how it's changed over that amount of time from a powder to a glistening paste that's now stuck to the outside of it. So just before sunup, I came out here, I put my PitBoss on at 225 degrees. Again, low and slow for this. I went ahead and put my pork butt, and I started it on this side. I now have it over on this side over here. This is probably gonna go for 4, maybe 5 hours. I'm gonna go ahead and probe it right now, and I'm gonna leave it plugged in. We wanna go until we get an internal temperature around 165 to 175 degrees, and then we're gonna take this out. We're gonna put it inside of a pan. We're gonna wrap it up, add some butter and more seasoning to it. That, sealed up, is what's gonna allow this thing to just get completely moist. And we're gonna cook it until about 205 degrees, but I actually like to test it a little bit like you would a cake, and I'll show you that in a few minutes, just a poke test. So let me get the probe in here, and we're gonna spritz this one time as well so we get that nice bark formed on there. It's starting to look a little bit dry on the outside. I touched it, and I don't have a ton of this stuff on my hands, so we know it's time. All right, we've got our butt here. I'm just gonna move this aside a little bit. Now, I know my bone runs from here to the side over there, so we're gonna go ahead and probe this, let's just say right about here. Nice and deep in there. All right, we'll spritz this, and we'll close it up. All right, this has been out here for about 4 hours. I've sprayed it once before, and I've moved it to a couple of different places. As you learn your pellet grill, you'll find out where the hot spots are. So I rotate mine around a little bit so I don't end up doing it too much in one spot. So I did it for about an hour and a half on the left, about an hour and a half on the right. It's been dead center now for a bit. I'm just gonna go ahead and spray it again. I like using these little pump-up sprayers. They're probably for like herbicides or something, but it works great. I've got a little red wine vinegar and water in here. Just gonna go ahead and get this misted down a little bit. That's looking good. We're sitting at 158 internal temperature, so probably another 20 or 30 minutes. We're gonna take this out, and we're gonna go ahead and put it in a pan. We're gonna season it up some more, add some butter to the top of it, wrap it real tight. We're gonna pop it in until it's just fork tender. And so it's about 35 minutes later. I'm showing 167 degrees on my internal probe built into the grill here. I'm gonna go ahead and probe test it with a little quick read thermometer and just check it out. Over here, yeah, right here.
Hey, do me a favor. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more like it, subscribe to the channel and click on that little bell notification so you get notified of new videos. Thanks.
All right, we're just gonna go ahead and get this guy lifted right up here. Now I'm just doing this kind of helps support the weight as I lift this up. Whew. You might have seen that the fat layer was starting to come right off of there. Got the cheapest damn spatula laying around here to do this with. Bad plan. All right, this guy's looking really good. I'm gonna go ahead and just give it one more quick spritz here. And I'm just using apple cider vinegar. You can use apple juice. You could just use water, but I like giving it a little bit of extra flavor. Now I'm gonna go ahead and season this one more time. This is the second rub we put on. Barbecue Pit Boys Big Texan rub is what this one is. But listen, you can make your own. We actually have videos. If you click on the little card up here, there's a video for how to make your own rub. Really easy to do. This one happens to have salt, sugar, and spices, pepper, paprika, chili, and that's kind of a really good mix. Salt, pepper, garlic, added with some brown sugar for pork is a great one as well. So I'm just going to give this another light sprinkle here. One thing I like to do, just make this a little bit better even, is to add a little bit of butter to the top of this. So I just have a nice cold stick of butter here, and I'm gonna slice up some little chunks of this and just set it right on top of it before we go ahead and put our foil on here. Probably doing about 1/4 of a stick is what this will equate to here. And now we're gonna wrap this whole thing up. One more quick spray. The moisture is not going to hurt this at all. As a matter of fact, it's kind of what we want as this thing cooks. Nice flavor, real deep right inside of this. Now, I'm paying attention to where I'm going here. As I was probe testing it before, I found the spots that were hotter or cooler on this. I want to put my probe in the spot that was the coolest, the thickest part of the meat, just to the inside of where the bone is. So I know my orientation, I know where it's going to go. I'm going to wrap it with foil and I'm going to probe through it from the outside. I'm going to take 2 pieces of foil here, given I've got this narrow foil thing here, and make it one larger piece. Put the 2 pieces on top of one another, fold over like a 1/2 inch or 1 inch of it, and then fold it twice, and then just spread it open, and you got a nice way to give you a bigger sheet of foil. And there we have it. I want this nice and tight around the edges. I don't want it touching the thing, so I'm actually tenting it just a little bit here. Again, I've paid attention to where I want this. I'm going to put that probe right in this spot, so I know exactly where that spot is. It's going to be toward me and to the right. Put that there. Now we're going low and slow. I still have this thing at 225 degrees. I'm gonna put it up at 250. That's all though. Put this right in this deeper part here of the pork butt. Now we're gonna let this go for probably about another 3 or 4 hours until that's at least 205 internal temperature. And we'll know by taking something like a quick read thermometer and just poking through it. It ought to go in like butter. You want it to be soft and tender, and that's how we know it's going to be ready for pulling. And of course, the ultimate test at the end is how easy that bone comes out. So we'll see how that turns out. So we are at about 7 hours now. My internal temperature is showing to be 211 degrees, according to this little probe, and I'm just going to go ahead and poke this in. And what I want to do is feel almost no resistance, which is exactly what I'm getting. So that means that this thing is tender. I'm gonna get this pulled off of here. We're gonna let it sit for a few minutes. I'll show you what it looks like, and then we'll begin to pull it. Well, the day never actually warmed up, but standing out here in front of the grill makes it a lot better. Now, I ran to the store before, and I asked my wife to just come out here and just move it down to 200 degrees, which is perfect. It let it hold there for a little while longer. But this is looking good, and we always talk about the test here. Let me go ahead and zoom in on this, and we'll pull that bone out and see how clean that comes out. You know, the test here is, can you grab this bone right here and pull it out cleanly? hard to grab hold of it with these gloves, but I would say the answer to that is yeah. So this is going to be amazingly tender. Look at that. Oh. Yeah, when that bone comes out that clean, that's usually a really good sign of its tenderness level. Should probably have gloves on because this is hot, but I've got to give a try to this. You can just see that smoke line in there. Phenomenal. Man, is that good. Tender, flavorful, smoky with that hickory smoke. That's it, folks. This really was easy. It is kind of a bit of a set it and forget it. So we had the PitBoss pellet smoker at 225 degrees. We put some rub on it. We let it sit for about 20 minutes. You saw earlier in the video that sort of time lapse of how the rub turns from a powder to a paste to adhere to it, which is what actually creates this lovely bark on the outside. Put it in and just let it go until it gets at 165 degrees internal temperature or so. Spritz it every once in a while if you want. That kind of helps keep that bark nice and firm as it goes through there and doesn't get it too crunchy. Once you're at an internal temperature of 165, take it out, put it in one of these little disposable pans or whatever kind of pan. Add a little bit more seasoning. Wrap it, by the way, a little butter is a way to kick it up. Wrap it real tight in foil, put it back in until you're at about 205 degrees or until it's fork tender all the way through. I like to use my instant read thermometer and just poke it through, and you almost get zero resistance. There ought to be more resistance going through the foil than there is the meat itself. And that's it. That's all there is to it. So I'm going to take this inside. We're going to let it rest before we end up pulling this apart, and we'll be having, I don't know, probably pulled pork sandwiches or pulled pork tacos for dinner. Thanks, everybody. Safe and happy grilling. We'll see you next week.